everybody.
Hi, we're excited to be here today with you guys. Wish it was in person, but we're excited to at least be able to do something online and get to know, and you guys get to know us a little bit. I'll introduce myself real quick, and then of course Gail can tell you a little bit about herself, but my name's Amanda Strong, and I'm super excited to be with you guys. I am an author, a young adult author of paranormal series, a couple different ones, but the one that I'm excited to share with you today and talk about is The Monsters Among Us. Hidden Monster is the first book in the series. And anyway, but very happy to be here. And Gail is really the reason I'm back into writing as an adult. I wrote as a kid, but we became friends, moved in next door to each other, and kind of got me back into writing when she told me she wrote a book. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're a mom and you wrote a book and you have 3 kids and I have 3 kids. So it got me really excited to get back into writing. So I have Gail to thank getting back into the writing world, and we've been kind of partners in crime since. So a little bit about me and us, and Gail, take it away.
Okay, I'm Gail Wagner. I also have 2 series out currently. The one that I'll be mostly talking about is the Dream Walker Chronicles. I started writing when my kids were really little. Honestly, I started writing because I was complaining about, I felt like I'd read my 5th book that had the same plot again. And my husband's like, why don't you shut up and just write your own book? So super supportive husband. No, he really is. But
yeah,
I'm tired of listening to me complain. So yeah, we've been through a lot.
yes.
So we moved in pretty much next door to you, in 2010?
Yes.
So 10 years
I just had my second baby. Second baby. No, I think it was Lily. No, it was Bella. You're right. See, Gail was better than me. It was my 3rd baby. Yeah, 3rd baby. And yeah, so in fact, just a funny little thing is my husband actually, because I had just had a baby and I was kind of indoors, and it was during winter months too, but I think he had come over, right, to introduce himself with.
No, he came over because we left our van door open after church, and he stopped by and he's all, your door's open.
Yeah.
And he's all like, I'll have to have my wife make you cookies. She just had a baby. And I'm like, that's horrible.
And then I think it's funny because one of the things he said about me is, I was like, oh, and she's Swedish. Yeah, which I'm like,
my wife's Swedish, and so we were like, oh, we really expect you to come over in like braids and be like, yeah,
hello. So I didn't know about that conversation, and I did end up making cookies and coming over not much longer after that, and they were expecting me probably to have like braids or
whatever. Totally.
But yeah, I thought it was so funny because she's like, oh, he says you're Swedish, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my ancestors are from there, but I'm pretty American.
You're like, it's been a while, it's been a few generations.
I know. So we've been friends. It's been 10 years, and that's like, we've been doing writing together, helping each other out with our projects, reading each other, proofing each other. Gail, so when I first wrote my first book back into the writing world, Gail was my first pair of eyes, poor thing. She had to deal with all my mistakes and all. You're like, oh my gosh, she did that, and just all the red lines through everything.
Well, I remember asking you, how mean do you want me to be? And you were like, not too mean. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'm like, I'm a mean editor.
Yes. Yep. So honestly, one of the things we were kind of, they had discussed is like our writing process, and Gail and I have kind of helped each other in that over the years, learn just getting a writing process and like learning how it works.
Well, I think when we started, we were just such opposites.
Yeah, true.
I tend to take forever to get my first draft out. It literally is like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the editing, whereas you're the total opposite. You're like, bleh, it's all out.
Fly out. Just let it come out.
I don't know how you write so fast. And then you're like editing forever because you're like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and I've since that first book, because literally chopped a third of it out. Like, it was 150,000 words, and I dropped
you had to get it under
words out. And
Well, and
after
you
that, I was like,
started
never
out,
again.
it was like 7 points of view, I want to say.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I threw everything in there.
It was, it was,
Yeah.
it was a good story though, and that's why I
Yes.
loved it. And
Yeah.
now
And
it's even better because
oh, yes. Seen some editing,
yes,
some
it's seen some
cleanup.
editing.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the writing process is definitely, I mean, I think everyone has a different, way to go about it. Now I feel like I'm more on your, like if I can find the time to write, and then I am a lot more critical on what I put on the page. I'm always going back, delete, delete, type a little
Mm-hmm.
delete, delete. Sometimes I wish I could go back to that, like just let it fly out, worry about it later. But I
I
don't know.
know.
It's too painful.
Well, I think both of us we just need to get back into the habit. We've kind of
Yeah.
taken hiatus. Both of us have had babies in the last several years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we now have 4 kids each.
Yeah.
And
And moving. You've had
and
some moving
moving.
adventures, and
Yes.
yeah, life is crazy. It's
Life
definitely been
is
crazy.
crazy.
But
So
writing is definitely one of those things that, I mean, I thoroughly enjoy. When I get the time to do it and I can just get lost in that world, it's like better than reading a book. Like
it
when I'm
is.
back to that mode, it's just like all I want to do. It's just finding the time to do it. And I think it just really, for some people, are like, well, how do you just have to like find that, like be disciplined about it? I mean, my husband kind of jokes, I guess it's what most, I somehow find time to get to the gym every day because that's my only sanity time to myself. So I need to just have the same passion for that, like, or push that I do on working out, like to writing again. So I make it happen. But sometimes it's what hits the chopping block.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Well,
Gail, do you want to tell them about your series of, you should tell them about yours. This is really awesome.
oh, my
And what
Dreamwalkers?
inspired you? Yes. Like, how did
Okay.
you come up with the concept? I
So
love this series. So it's a
um
really good one.
Dreamwalkers started. I love finding neat historical events, little anecdotes, little myths, whatever, and then going, what if, and then kind of going off on my own little tangent. But I had found a story about, I think it's King Philip the Fourth. I'm
There's
not
your
sure.
first step.
It's a king of France. I'd have to go look up in my own book who it was. But
Right?
he,
I've done that.
he waged all these wars and he ran out of money. So he had to borrow a bunch from the Knights Templar,
Mm-hmm.
and he hated being in debt. So he charged them all with heresy, took all their land, took all their money, and executed them all.
Oh my
Nice
goodness.
guy
Yeah.
there.
Nice guy. Nice.
And I was like, what if one guy escaped? What if they weren't what it seemed? And so that's kind of the background of my story.
Mm-hmm.
It is set in modern day New York, and it's a group of people that are quite honestly still they're still kind of fighting with the remnants of this fight, but in the dream world, because they had found a way to, I usually say, flit through people's dreams. And they're hunting for an amulet that was broken up and scattered through the dream world, which could literally be anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
in order to uh, control the dream world. And so it starts with, oh, so sorry. It's that time of year. It's allergy
Yeah.
season. My
We're like, we don't have COVID, I promise.
yeah, no, it's just
Like,
allergies.
you can't
But
cough or sneeze or do anything in public or sniff. You're like, oh.
I know. But
Yeah.
it starts with a girl who doesn't realize she's doing it, but she's going into people's dreams and not only walking through them naturally, but she is manipulating them. And so it's these two groups who realize she's there and they start kind of hunting for her in the real world in order to help their own side. And she has to figure out, well, first she has to figure out that she's not crazy because she thinks she's crazy. But it's her trying to figure out which side is the right side. And I think in life, a lot of times you're trying to figure out which side's the right side.
Right. It's
Both
true.
sides have a lot of, things that are right and a lot of things that are wrong. So
Yeah,
I felt
it's true.
that was a fun,
No?
kind of a fun twist in it. But
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
I know when you started Hidden Monster, um, I remember, didn't you start it? Didn't it? Uh,
I was
you wrote
burnt out
yeah, I
of
know you were
editing.
so burnt out on editing.
My other
Awakening,
book. Yes.
and
My first baby. I was so burnt out on editing. I was like, oh,
and
I
I
need a break.
remember you wrote your first chapter, and you were like, "Here, read it, and let me know what you think." And I thought, Amanda, you're so sweet looking. Who knew you could write so twisted?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
that first
Yeah.
chapter, a little bit,
A little dark.
it's a little
A little
dark.
disturbed. Yeah. No, it really was because, like I said, my first book out, I just like kind of, like Gail said, I threw up all over the pages really, and I had to learn how to edit, and I was so bogged down. And we started going to writers' conferences together, and it was during that time I just was feeling kind of discouraged, and I just felt like I need to write something just really fun that I can just kind of escape in for a minute. And that's really like I kept seeing this scene in my head, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna write it because it's exciting to me. I want to go with it, and that's how it started. It was just kind of a scene in my head, and just like the quick little premise of it is that the scene I saw that I wrote for that first chapter, and I think I entered it into competition or whatever, and I didn't really know where I was going to go with it, but was just like a girl basically out running in the woods, and then she gets knocked out, wakes up tied up in a cabin, and her kidnapper, or person that took her, she's tied to a mattress, like a dirty old mattress, and she's tied up, and he's covered like head to toe. She can't tell who it is, and even has like a little voice modulator, so you can't tell the voice. Can't even tell if it's female or male, actually. Doesn't really speak to her and just keeps injecting her with these needles. And of course, she's terrified, and this goes on for a couple weeks. And then finally, one day, he speaks to her and says, "You're gonna fall in love with me one day and not know it's me." And then he lets her go, or she's just released the next morning. And so she's freaked out, running through the woods, trying to figure out where she's at, what's going on, and terrified basically as she comes back to real life of trusting anyone, and just scared. I mean, has to go through all the emotional issues. And then a lot of people don't even, there's some people that don't even believe her. They think it was just an attention thing because there's no evidence of, where she was, or they never, they just like, there's that side of it. But she basically then starts changing. And so that was the premise of that scene. And so when I wrote it, and then I realized I was really excited about it. I wanted to keep writing it. So I kept writing it. And then I do that whole like 30, 40 pages in, and then I go, oh, okay, hold on. What am I doing with this?
Where am I going with this?
Yeah, what the heck? And so I started doing some research into different things that were really fascinating to me. One of the things was dragonflies. Ironically, I've always loved them. I think they're very mystical and cool, and just the way they look and all the things, their attributes. And so I twine that idea into the books. It is kind of a sci-fi thriller, the whole series. So, and I didn't think it would be a series, but by the
I
time
was going to say, when you started it, I remember you're like, no, I'm going to make it just a normal novel
it's just
this time.
it's just one book. But by the time you build this world and these characters, and then a lot of times the conflicts, the stakes get higher, and and all of a sudden you've got all these things to resolve. You're like, oh, I've got to write this longer. This is just keep going. So
Well, and I think part of it is that I know even I've got a book that it's not published yet, but it's a standalone, and I ended up getting other ideas. Now each book will be its own standalone kind of sort of thing.
yeah,
You've
but all
spent
kind of in that
all
same
this
series.
time developing these characters and their
Yeah, you can't say goodbye.
You can't just drop them like a hot potato, man.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And I
it's
think
kind of the
series are
same
fun.
thing.
They're really fun to write.
It is. I know. I remember I had somebody ask me, with one of my other ones. They're like, did you just write it? And I'm like, no, I knew exactly. Of course, this is my writing style. I knew exactly this is going to happen in book 1. This is how it's going to end. This is book 2. This is how it's going to end. Book 3. Now, I might not know everything that's going to go on in each one, but man, when I started book 1, I knew how book 3 would end.
Yeah. You knew where you wanted to get to.
There was some tweaking in there, but I knew the premise of exactly that end scene that I wanted. So all 3 books was heading that way. And I know there's a lot of people who talk about, oh, are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? And I like to say that I'm kind of a mixture of both. I plot a very basic,
rough outline of where you want to get to. Yeah.
And I have a hard time writing if I don't have that, because I've been working on one of my books for like 5 years, because although I had great characters and a great plot, I still have no idea how I want it to end. So I have nowhere to work toward. It's just kind of sitting there.
Yeah. You're like,
you know,
give that till your mind clicks it together, and it will eventually. You'll know exactly where you want it to go. Yeah.
to me, it's like when I paint a wall and I prime it, and I'm like, yeah, this is good. And then I'm like, well, what color do I end up with? I have no idea. So it sits there with a
you just sit there. It just wait. Yeah. No, I totally get it. I mean, I feel like I've learned, like at the beginning, I was very, like I start out like kind of a pantser, just let it come out, let the scenes fly, develop the characters. Yeah. And I think, honestly, for those, like if anyone is watching that likes to write and they're like, how do you actually write a book? I think you do, especially that first time, that first process, you kind of have to just let go, because you don't know from the start all the characters. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know how they're going to develop. I mean, you'll have side characters that you think are just a side character, and they become one of your favorite characters, and a huge plot twist because they developed in such a character.
They end up taking over.
They take over. Yeah, they become the favorite. So you're like, I need something about this whole story now. And it just develops itself that way. So it's kind of cool. You have to do a little bit of both, I think.
You do. And I know, I think you have to be open, even if you're a
let
plotter.
Your mind go.
Because sometimes, a twist comes in or something and you're like, ooh, I should run with that one. That's even better. But I know with my first book, I got about 3/4 of the way done. The first book I ever wrote. 3/4 of the way done, and I knew where I was going with that. I chucked it. I completely started from scratch, because I felt like the beginning of it, I sounded like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I sound like a 3rd grader writing a story.
That's
and by the end of it, I sounded, my writing style was so much more developed. So I just chucked the whole thing and rewrote it, and it was so much better. Now, if I did it again, it would probably be even better now at this point, because I've got a lot more experience writing. But
that's true for sure. Well, you'll read back to especially like a series that's done, like Hidden Monster is done, and I'll get to the end of the 3rd book, and then sometimes for fun, I'll pick up book 1, start reading, and I'm like, oh, I mean, it's already published, so I can't do much about it now.
I know.
I'm like,
I won't do that, because I would
have said that,
I'm too much of a perfectionist. I won't go back and reread my published books, because
you don't see. It's kind of like a treat to me. Every 6 months or so, I like to pull one out and just randomly read different parts, and it kind of is fun to me. Now, going back, so I zigzagged between my 2 series. I wrote Awakener, and then I wrote Hidden Monster, and that got published. And then I went back to Awakener and wrote book 2 of that series. And then I went back to Hidden Monster and did book 2, and I thought, I've got to finish this series, so I did 3. So now I'm bouncing back to my other series. So now, since I've been in that world as much, writing book 3, I'm like halfway through, and I'm like, I'm using book 1 and 2, or 1 and 2 to refresh.
I do that.
Well, and in series, I think too, you have all these unanswered questions, and I mean, I try to take good notes, but sometimes you forget all those little loose ends, and I want to make sure my reader's satisfied, and they're not like, she totally didn't, because that drives me crazy when you're reading.
That drives me nuts.
Answered that, or like a TV series, you're like, what the heck? That had nothing to do with anything.
You played this whole thing up, and then you didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, you don't want to do Lost to your books, right? We're like, the numbers, what do they even mean? Yeah, so you want to make sure the rereading is kind of a good way too to get back into it and okay, yes, I remember my characters and this is what was happening. But I was just laughing a little bit when we were talking about plot twists, because Gail and I wrote a book together. And we co-wrote a book that we're hopefully going to get out there. It's just because we haven't got ourselves to put it out there yet.
Well, and the summers are always crazy anyway.
I know.
And then this summer
and now I'm
was just
online schooling kids, and I feel like my house is just insane.
Yeah, I was like, you're doing online schooling. I'm homeschooling 2 high schoolers.
So, yeah. I mean, I'm to the point I think I'd rather be just homeschooling than trying to figure out what is happening online. But
I hear you. Note. I've heard that.
Just some moms feeling it right now. But no, we wrote this book together, and so we would zigzag between chapters with characters. And I do realize my style is I will be writing a scene, and all of a sudden I see something. I'm like, oh, I could go, so I'll write it in, and then Gail gets the book back, her part back, and she's reading, and she's like, wait, what? What's that? And I'm like, well, I thought we could do it.
Luckily though, I'm usually okay with that. I'm like, oh, I'll roll with that. I'm
Once
okay.
we get all like intertwined, I'm like, see, maybe this could, and I really saw this, and so I just put it in there, and yeah, so it I think I am more pantser than planner. I tend to do that a lot more because I just see it in my head and go with it.
But that's good with the two of us, because I am definitely more of a planner with some pantser, and you're the opposite there.
Yes. So
but
I know balance each other out.
Yes. Well, that was, and I know you would, because of course when we would switch, we'd have to read each other's chapters.
Yes.
To write our next one, and there were a couple of times you'd be like, can I add some more into your
yeah, and I tend to write
double. I was gonna say, it's really funny because I've always said I write really skinny, and then I have to go in and fluff it out. I
tend to write more, and then I have to go back and
fluffy, and then you have to trim it down, and
trim the fat after. So it was fun, but I think actually we realized, even though we're a little different in our writing styles, we write very, very similar enough. You said, some of the people reading the book couldn't really tell who wrote which chapter. I think our styles were very similar.
It was really funny. My mom read it, and it was really funny because she calls me and she's like, you better finish this series, because if you don't, I'm going to come after both of you. I was like, thanks, Mom.
Yeah, we need to.
She calls me and she's all, you wrote Charlie, didn't you? And I was like, I did. How did you know that? And she's all, because she sticks her tongue out all the time.
Yes, she knows your mannerisms.
And then there was something your character did, and she's all, and I bet Amanda wrote. And I'm like, she did.
I wrote Violet, huh? Yeah, I did.
And I'm like, it was just funny because it was little things. And I remember when you wrote Awakener, your main character, well, both your main characters, because Samantha in Hidden Monster is tall and blonde. And I know you guys can't tell from us sitting here, and actually, and here's the funny thing, when we're sitting next to each other, we're actually the same height. However, when we stand up, I am 5'2.5", and Amanda is 5'9"?
5'9",
5'9", and then she never wears anything less than 4-inch heels.
Give or take. I like heels.
So there's a little bit of a height disparity there. And it was really funny because I don't remember if it was Awakener or Hidden Monster, but one of your characters talking about staring at the top of somebody's head.
Yeah.
So much taller than everybody.
Yeah. And you're like, what?
I'm like, wait, do people really do that? Like, do you stare at the top of my head all the time? And you're like, yeah.
It's just a different perspective, different world. I know I need to branch out and write a character that's 5'9" or something, super short, and she has to deal with short people.
I was gonna say, my characters are all short because that is my life perspective. Obviously my first series, she's a leprechaun, so even in her human form, she's 4'9", and then
short.
And then Cordy in Dreamwalkers is not particular. I think she's 5'4". I made her a little taller. But I think I make the comment about how she has to jump up on the counter to get something out of the cupboard, or she falls in the washer or something. And I'm like, that's my life.
Reaching for the socks at the bottom.
Seriously, pregnant, I couldn't even do it. My kids had to do it for me because
I can't. I don't like doing anything bending over pregnant.
I fall into the washer, and I'm my feet are
you're lying back there.
Yeah, pretty much
like a kid in a bucket. No, I know. Well, it is true. I mean, I think it does kind of show that people always ask, are your characters based off yourself at all? Or, is there any part of that that's you? And I'm like, I think you kind of, little bits of you are spattered through the whole thing, or people really well, your husband, your boyfriend, or whatever it might be. You can't help but their manner. Somebody in your book is going to have something that reminds you of them,
Yeah, you do. I know you have a character that is so Josh. But he's in Awakener. Trent. Yes.
Yeah, Trent. It was Trent. Yes. I was like, 100% my husband. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it is. I think our main characters, you tend to pick one personality trait out of ourselves.
Yeah.
And kind of play that one up.
Yeah.
I know one of my characters, she's just sassy and cynical, and I'm not really, well, That's not true. I'm extremely sassy. However, I am not at all cynical.
No.
Not really. I can be. I don't know. Maybe I am. But
No.
I made that up. I took that
Yeah.
part of me that wants to be snarky.
Yeah, and just
And,
you
I just
out.
let it loose. All the mean comments, all the snappy, nasty comebacks. I always want to say that I never really do because I try to be a nice person.
Yeah, you're trying to hold it in.
You know?
That's so funny. I know,
But
it's true though. Yeah, you can just like let the character do and say. It's kind of fun. I think it's very therapeutic writing books. I think you work through, I mean, even emotions, like, you know, I mean, it's kind of fun. One thing I think is funny, the very first time I ever wrote a book was when I was 16, and I wrote a book, a whole thing. Of course, it's sitting in a box. It's terrible. But at that, I wrote about a 30-something-year-old woman, which I obviously had no experience with. And now I am a little older than 30, maybe a little older than 40. But no, I'm, you know, on that age. And now I'm always writing about 16, 17, 18-year-olds. But what's fun about that age is you get to kind of relive a lot of those feelings, breakups, whether first loves, first kisses. And it's kind of fun to delve into those emotions and refeel and like, it's just a fun age. There's so many firsts, you know.
it is. Well, the first, and then you have that, what do you want to call it? Like, there's just your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah.
You can do anything at that point, you know? And not that you can't, I can do anything now, but it's that, I don't know, you always hear about teenagers who think they're invincible. I don't know if I ever thought I was invincible, but I certainly had that, like,
of
course, I was always a more cautious.
I was gonna say, I was a scaredy pants. I was like
scaredy. I take too much after my dad, who calls himself a realist. You hope for the best, you prepare for the worst, you know?
Yes, exactly.
I always lived my life that way. And it's, you just, I don't know, there's so much out there.
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah.
And there's still magic in the world to a certain extent. But
for sure.
I know it was really funny when I was the first writers conference we went to. What was that, in Crested Butte?
Crested Butte in Colorado.
Yeah,
it was so neat. I wish they'd do it again.
I know. I wish
neat.
they still did that one, but
so
they don't.
Cool. Yeah.
But we went to that, and one of the classes we took, wasn't it that one that they said everybody has an inner voice?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that inner voice tends to be a certain age.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
Our age.
And I cracked
18,
up
19.
because, well, your characters always tend to start out around 15.
Yeah.
16. And that's where you're comfortable writing.
Yeah.
And mine always, if I have, without thinking, I almost always make my characters 17.
17, yeah.
17. Not an adult, but just on the cusp of being an adult.
Yeah,
and,
right on the age, yeah. I think in Hidden Monster, I think I did start a little older on that one, just because, first of all, I mean, she did start out with a kidnapping too. I mean, and I kind of picture more of like I think she is 17, 18. I should know this. I think she was right on the cusp of 17 or 18. I have to look at exactly her age, but I definitely wanted her to be a tiny bit older. Not that at that age, there's, you know, kidnapping is never good at any age, but I definitely didn't want a 14, 15-year-old because it was a little more adult themed and wanting her to be a little older to handle everything. But yeah, it's definitely, I think I like that age, but it is just so many things you can discuss and discover and delve into, you know.
Series that we just the book that we just finished together, we tried. That was originally going to be a middle grade book.
I know, we're like,
we couldn't do it.
13, 14. I think we got to 15, 16, didn't we?
And yeah, 17, that was our compromise. Yeah.
I know, we're like, I can't do it. I can't.
No. We just couldn't do it.
So, yeah, I think we do have a certain, that between 16, 18, 19, that's a nice age, you know, to start your characters.
It is.
So you can kind of grow, and you still grow with them, you know, and go into different things. But yeah, it's been really fun. We'll have to get our book out there, Gail, our book together.
Yeah.
For sure.
Get it working.
I know. Finding the time is so hard. But we were mentioning like writers' conferences. If anyone's watching that enjoys writing, And I know right now everything's a little different and weird because of 2020 has been a weird year, but typically there are lots of writers conferences out there that are so good, the classes. And even we were just talking about, we kind of started doing more marketing versus conferences, like doing more Comic Cons and things like that,
Yeah,
where
we
we
do a lot
actually
of
go
Comic
sell our
Cons.
books and market more and make connections. But you know, there's something nice about going back to writers classes and refreshers and just
It doesn't
honing.
matter how good you are.
Yeah, or if you're
It's
published or not, like it's really good to go over it and remind yourself of those things because
Mhm.
you kind of forget, you know.
I know we went to Crested Butte, and that one was good, but I think they stopped doing that a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then right about the time we were like, we should go back. They
yeah.
were like, oh, we don't
That'd
do
be
it
really
anymore.
neat. Yeah,
Story Makers is really
yeah.
good. That one's I think they have two. They've got one in Utah, and then I think Missouri.
They're one in, oh, really?
There's
I didn't
one
know
in the
about that one.
Midwest. Yeah, they
Yeah,
do one in the Midwest too. And I
that's
know
cool.
there's always writers groups.
Yes, locally too. Like check into
Even
it. Like if you're, yeah, there's groups that usually on Facebook you can find writers groups too, where people are meeting up. Because even where I am here, like I just recently went so much. It was writing slash kind of acting and screenplay writing. But up in Durango, Colorado, they had like a little workshop thing that I ended up going to not that long ago. It was kind of more about the acting end of it, but they did go into writing screenplays and what to do to get your book into, you know, something you can hopefully get into uh, maybe TV format or movies or, you know,
right.
Netflix series kind of stuff. But yeah, because that's a whole nother ball game itself, a whole
That
nother
is.
art
And
form.
I have dabbled in that, and it is
Oh,
so much harder than
I
one would
know,
think.
I
Um,
know. But that's, you have to do that too if you want to get into the next, if that's where you're, which I don't know. I would love it. I know you would love it, Gail. That's always like a dream, I think, is to see something on the screen, whether it's a series or TV or a movie or whatever. It'd be really awesome to see a series out there, you
yeah.
know.
Well, I don't know. After some of the movies I've seen of my favorite books, I don't
No,
know if I
don't
want them to
butcher
turn
it.
into
Yeah. Just keep it the way it is. That would be hard. It would be hard to see them like change characters, delete characters, change plot, change the feel. That would be really hard to let that go
mine.
because
It
it is your
would.
baby. You know, it is your project.
It
But
is a little bit your baby. You kind of just have to be like, see you later,
yeah,
and let
yeah,
them do their thing and
and hope for the best.
hope for the best. And be like, I want a cameo. Just have me. I'd be like Stephanie Meyer. Just hand me a salad in a cafe
Yeah, I'll just
scene.
be in the
No
background.
acting.
Right? I know. Yes, we all could do that. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, I can totally eat a salad. I'm good at that.
Yeah, I could do that. I'm really good at that.
Right?
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
so Gail, your series that they have book one of, it's a 2-book series and
it
it's
is.
done,
It
right?
is done. I have a book 3 that I've dabbled with because of course the saying, like my book titles are Let Her Sleep for When She
Yeah,
Wakes, She Will Move Mountains. That's the saying. And book 1 is Let
yeah.
Her Sleep. Book 2 is When She Wakes. I have a She Will Move Mountains idea, but I did finish book 2 so that it's done. Um,
Yeah.
book
So you
3 would
could
be
go
more
back.
like yeah, it'd be like several years later kind of
Hmm.
thing, same characters. And
Which would be really cool.
I think I wrote like, let's say 4 or 5 chapters, and
Started it.
then yeah, I started it, and then I'm sure we have moved so many times.
I know. Life gets in the way. It
I'm
gets
like
crazy. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it's insane. And then of course with 4 kids,
Yeah.
it's
Just finding the time. I know. Yeah. When I'm supposed to be working right now. So Hidden Monster series is done and it's done. I don't think I'll go back and write any other thing on that. But the Awakener series was technically called Watchers of Men, but I am trying to get book 3 done. And I was always planning on it to be a 4-book series. And then talking to my publisher, they kind of really encouraged me to kind of put it into
wrap
all
it
the
up.
3rd book. So that kind of threw me a little bit because I was about halfway through it. And I'm like, so I kind of hit that point where you're like, okay, how do I want to do this? There's a lot to have happen and just to make sure I get everything done. And I don't know. And then COVID hit. And ironically, there was this other sci-fi idea I've had bouncing around the back of my head. And that was what I wanted to write. So I mean, so during the whole shutdown and craziness of the world, it kind of like lended itself really well to that feeling of what I wanted for the sci-fi. And
Almost
so,
like a dystopia. We live
yes,
in our own dystopian world now.
yeah,
So
it really kind of like played really well into that. And so I wrote, and again, I was gun ho. I wrote 200 pages, and then kind of had to put the brakes on when life got crazy again. So I'm hoping to finish that as well. That's a project that I'm not sure what I'll do, try to shop it out or whatever, but I'm really excited because that one is based in New Mexico, and it's actually based out of like Albuquerque area. So it would
that's
be,
like mine.
yeah. So
I have.
knowing, because I've met, like I dabble in acting. I've been dabbling in acting a little bit, I should say, but no, getting to know a lot of different people in the film industry and stuff, and just kind of talking to different people, and they, saying, oh my gosh, something based where it's easy to film, like yours. You have a series as well that's really awesome, and I can't believe it's not already on Netflix. What the flip? It's like one of my favorites, and you have to say, I did encourage you to go darker on it. That one,
yes, that's my twist.
Without going into it, but I was like, Gail, this needs to be darker. This needs to have more.
And I probably didn't go as dark as you would have wanted me to.
Yeah, but it's really good. It's really good. But yeah, so it'd be really cool since we're, locals here, and like it would be really like for both, I'm sure, like just be awesome to eventually see something on like film or something like that, where especially with it being a local thing, and you can
I know, and
people,
that's a series since I just moved again, and
Yeah.
I am in Albuquerque right now, and so actually that would be I mean, you can do a lot of research. I'm like right here.
Yeah. So hint, anyone out there? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, if anybody knows anybody who's
series we both have books that you would be so easy to film. So fun and so easy. Just done local. It'd be so easy.
Yes, it would be great.
I mean, I think actually, speaking of that though, like New Mexico is kind of a really unique, cool state. Like
it is.
The longer I live here, the more I just love our state. I think it's like the whole state is kind of like living in a small town, and all the little connections of meeting people and the opportunities that come are just amazing. Like, and I just feel, even just doing this, like I'm very grateful for this. Like, I think this is an awesome opportunity. I'm totally obsessed with I'm like, I want to come and do it in the bookstore.
I know.
I'm obsessed
We're
with
much more people.
So
we're people.
Like, yeah. And we love, like, we like to chat and get to know people in person and stuff, but just being able to do something like this at the bookstore there, I mean, I'm like, this is amazing to me. Such an opportunity that I'm just super excited to do. So.
Well, I know, in fact, my oldest daughter and I were, we've been shopping because there's shopping here.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Aren't you jealous? But
yes, no shopping here.
I know there's no shopping in Farmington, but
no,
we
not much.
We went out because we're kind of learning, where we are in relationship to different places, and it was so funny because we were like, it feels like a bunch of little towns.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than one big town. And we've lived in Minneapolis before. Hated
cities,
it.
Yeah.
Beautiful town, but I hated it because traffic was horrible, and they were always doing construction work constantly, and it took forever to get anywhere. But there's all these skyscrapers, and there's like not a whole lot of that here. It's a very sprawling, and then it's
Open.
really funny because even where we are, we've got the mountains. Actually, that way,
not far,
like right outside this window, and then if you're driving the other direction, you've got like the mesas and the little I don't know what you call those, the buttes or whatever, and like you feel like you're sitting in a movie set.
Yeah, well, it is. You can have desert. Yeah, or it can be, it's there's so many, and they do film tons of films here.
They do.
So it's really a neat state. I think it's a great state for creative minds, and just the connections you make with people, and the networking, and just getting to know people. And it's kind of like it's like living in a small town wherever you go, and you just like, it's crazy. It's a small little world, but I think New Mexico's awesome.
I feel like everybody's super friendly. But what's really funny is I started my book that's set here. I actually started writing when I lived in Minnesota. We lived in Rochester too. Like I said, we've moved a ton. But we lived in Rochester, Minnesota, which is where my husband's from. And I started it, well, I started plotting it there. Had no idea we were going to end up in New Mexico. Was not even on my radar. I'm a Midwestern girl. I'm Missouri, Arkansas. That's where I spent most of my childhood, and even my early married life. That's where we were. And my husband ended up, he's a speech therapist, and he ended up getting a job out on the Navajo reservation. So we ended up in New Mexico. So what a coincidence.
Yeah.
But it, you know, it made researching a lot.
Awesome, huh?
It was awesome because I could actually go to places my characters would go. And with my other books, I've never been to New York. I've never been,
or
well,
Ireland.
I've been to Virginia. Yeah, I've certainly never been to Ireland. I would love to go to Ireland. I did a lot of Google Earth. I drove the,
oh, I know, right? You do so much research, trying to make it as real as possible.
Trying to make it as real as possible. I do. I am very proud of the fact that I have a little Irish friend. He's from Ireland that I met on Wattpad years ago. And he read my Irish series, and he said it was good. He said he felt like it wasn't too obvious that an American had written it. So I take that as a compliment.
That is, I know. It is really nice when you meet people that have been or lived there. Because, you can say, tell me, like, what it's like. Tell me what's typical, what kind of food, do you hear music in there when you walk down the marketplace? Or is it like outdoor cafes, or is it inside? Yeah, what is it like? And then when you get those details, it's so nice. Yeah, it's so nice. Yeah, because I'd love to travel the world, but
I remember, because of course I started writing my first book in 2009, and I actually, this tells you how long ago this was, I actually went to AAA.
Oh, wow.
And I got a map, like when you used to go and you be like, oh, I need a map for, Oregon, because I'm going there or whatever.
Yeah.
And they gave me this whole little trip packet. Well, I said, do you have any maps of Ireland? And they were like, we do. We have one.
Oh, really?
I totally have. I still have that. I still have that. And I actually, at one point, they take a road trip, and I actually went and marked what roads and where things were on the island, so I could see.
Oh, that's
because
so cool.
If you have somebody driving from, I don't know, I don't know my Ireland geography, but from say Dublin to Northern Ireland, and you're like, oh, they were there in 2 hours, and it's a 17-hour drive or whatever. That totally takes people out of the reality. I know I've read a couple of books like that where I read a book that was set in New Mexico, and I don't remember what it was. They made a comment about the Zuni, our Zuni sun symbol that's on
Mm-hmm.
Well, they called it like a Navajo sun symbol or something, and I was like, hold up.
Wasn't that the book you said everything they just said?
Everything was this.
Navajo that, Navajo that, and you're like, that's not how we talk or have things.
And there's some things I feel are unforgivable. You can just Google things. Information is right there at your fingertips. I mean, some things it's best if you experience them to get that real feeling. But some things are just Googleable.
Yes.
But I remember
Google's your friend.
I was writing a battle scene in one of my books, and this goes along with that whole if the NSA or whatever looked at.
Oh my gosh, right?
Like
how to get rid of a body.
Search history, how to transport a body across country lines or whatever. And I remember
it stinks,
one of my writing groups that I was part of on Facebook, I went and asked, what sound does flesh make when you hit it with a sword? And it was really funny because one of the guys who I think writes a lot of like fantasy action, he actually was like, so go take a chicken breast and like hit it with a knife really hard. And like, I was like,
listen.
Oh, that's horrible. But you know what? It's true.
It works. Yeah.
So, but
descriptions.
writing battle scenes is hard.
Oh, it is. It
Especially
is.
for me because I'm less of a action, that kind of action
I know. I know. I'm like trying to
person.
describe things and yeah, and making sure it makes sense and like, yeah,
It
battle
makes
scenes are hard. They're
it
hard.
makes me think of, I remember an interview with J.K. Rowling about how she would do anything to get out of writing a Quidditch match.
Oh,
Like,
really?
oh yeah, because she said that you can only write what's going on so many different ways before it feels like you're repeating yourself,
Yes.
essentially.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like that was how it was with the battle scene. And so when I started feeling that way, I felt like I better speed it up or take it somewhere else, because if I'm getting bored, my readers are surely going to
I
get
know
bored.
they're like, yeah.
But
I just
yeah.
think it's funny, like sometimes, and I know you do this too, Gail, is like sometimes you'll be picturing something in your head and you're like, okay, so if they went like this, we go back, and you like start acting it out because you're trying to figure out like, so could I kick my leg over there if I was to kick this way, or or just walk like certain ways you walk. I know, did you say one time? But I do it totally. Do it. I'll say something and I think about how my face, because
I make the faces while I'm
yeah,
writing.
like the weird facial things I do, like.
And Roger's, my husband, sitting in bed next to me, and he's all like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Sorry." I was like, she like had her lip curl. I was like trying to like,
Oh, Elvis Presley like.
But I was like, if she's saying it a certain way, how is my nose scrunched? How are my
Yeah.
eyebrows? How are my, like,
I know.
yeah.
Trying
So
to
you
make
do that a
things.
lot,
Yep.
because I know
Totally.
you do try to, Carl, didn't we take a class on that? I feel like I remember writing about emotive elbows or something, because they were like, use body parts that you don't typically use. And they were
Yeah.
like, offered apologetic wrists. And I
Yes.
was all,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. You're like,
So
okay, that's a good idea.
that is a good idea. And that
Doesn't
totally,
sound weird.
it totally is you get that gesture, apologetic wrists,
Yeah. Because then immediately it's like out like that.
Oh, sorry. But yeah,
Yeah.
so it is something you do. You start like, I'll start doing this.
Yeah.
Or
Like, what is this? What's another way of saying it so you don't have your pet words that you say
oh yeah,
500
I
times
still
in the
have my
book?
pet words.
Ah.
I'm really bad about just. I use just so
Just,
often.
only, yeah, very, like all those little words or certain ways of describing it. It's like, oh my goodness, try to get all creative and
Well,
make
in
it sound
every
more
book, you
interesting.
have your pet words that you use in everything, and then I feel like every series or book, you get hung up on one like really weird word for whatever
Yeah,
reason too, and then you're like, I gotta go find a better word or a different word
yeah.
at least. And then but then you don't
Well,
want to
yeah,
start sounding like you just went through your thesaurus and you're like,
I know sometimes you do. You're like, I think
crimson,
that goes.
scarlet, red, pomegranate.
Beet juice.
So many times. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I like exclamation points.
Oh yeah.
And Gail knows that. And I mean, even now when I text, I look at it and I'm like, almost every sentence has an exclamation point or two or three. And so even still now I'm aware of it and I try so hard and I get stuff back from my editor and she's like,
No exclamation points.
points in this book. So if you could just go through and just have a spattering through the whole book. And I know, Gail, that was something you were always like, oh my gosh, Amanda, exclamation points everywhere. So that's my little pet my own little punctuation that I like.
You like that? I like ellipses, the like dot dot
Yes.
dot.
Oh,
I
yeah.
use those. Even my
Yes.
text. Totally. I'll have like 4 or 5 in a text. Like dot dot dot
Yeah.
dot dot dot.
Like, but it just works. It goes.
It
In my
does.
head, it works. It's the nice pause.
Well, and I think this last book we wrote,
Yeah.
she totally called me on it. She was all, you only use ellipses when, and
I know.
and I think that's the dirty little secret. Certainly ours, or at least mine.
Yeah, I know.
Grammar
I do it all.
is so not my strong point. Never
Oh,
was.
gosh.
A straight A student, grammar was never my strong point.
I
Spelling,
know.
worst. Literally, spelling was my worst subject.
Oh, well, I'm worse than you, Gail. So
I'm just not. I've never like comma rules, and
these are the dirty little secrets of our
I'm like, that's why you have an editor, right? And spell check.
Oh, I know.
So bad at it.
I know.
But, yeah. No, I was
know.
much better at German. I took German in high school and I was much better at German grammar.
Yeah, it made more sense. Well, English is kind of funky sometimes. Spelling can be funky. I get hung up sometimes. I guess we're going into our own but I will do like shutter,
And
and
heels and
Gail will be
heels.
like, I think you mean, are you talking about a window or is she?
Yeah. Also, you do the heels, the two different
Yes.
heels.
Yeah. Oh, is that heel? She was healing, or is it her high heels? Oh my
I know.
goodness.
I crack up every time. And Addie, I'll say Amanda in her heels, and she's all, did she use the wrong? Addie. She's always like, did she use the wrong one again? Yeah.
Yep. This stuff doesn't matter. No, I'm just kidding. It does matter. And thank heavens for proofreaders, editors, because sometimes a lot of times you don't even see it yourself. And then you get done, you don't even see the mistakes. So it's good to have beta readers.
It's good to have
to clean it up because,
pair of eyes that help out with that.
Because you don't see it. Your brain doesn't even see it anymore.
And it's funny because Addie, who is 16 now, she has, I don't know if it's just, she's gifted in reading anyway, but she is so nitpicky. She's like me. If she turns on editor mode, she almost can't enjoy a book.
She just sees but that's great for editing.
It is. She's very nitpicky, and so I get her to.
That's your daughter, by the way.
That is my daughter, my oldest daughter.
Yeah. Well, that's good though. You need that. I mean, you do, because you don't see it. It's almost like you need a pair of eyes that are just for content and flow and plot. You know what I mean? Like to make sure everything makes sense and there's no major plot errors. And then you need like someone who can just get the real technical stuff, clean it up too.
Yeah.
Or I need both. I need it all on my stuff.
Content.
I just enjoy writing. I don't like editing.
I like editing, but that's so great, Amanda.
It works so good. You enjoy editing, and I enjoy.
I like getting out my little red pen and being like, no, just take all of this out.
Yeah, out. It's not necessary.
It's my inner crabby English teacher coming out.
I know. So those are things. Yeah, like if anyone's not an author, they're probably like, really? Because people assume a lot of times they'll say, oh, you're probably so good at grammar and spelling and English, and you were an English major, and I'm like, actually, I was better at math and science.
I was gonna say I was a math and science person.
I love reading, but yeah, I love reading.
I was really good at creative writing in high school, but let's be honest, you don't do a whole lot of creative writing. It was mostly essay on things. I was really good at BSing my way through an essay too, though. Like I said, straight A's all through high school.
I know. Like even I have a daughter that's in 6th grade this year, and she's like doing her ELA or English, and like they're doing like break down the sentence structure and tell me and I'm like, know that she's an author. I'm like, oh my goodness, let me get on Google. Let me look online for a second so I can know what they're talking about.
Let me refresh myself. Yeah.
Well, very little secrets about us. But when it comes to creating a world and getting into lost in character and all that, I'm like, yes, that's the part I enjoy.
Well, I think the only thing you need for that is a very overactive imagination, which I have in abundance, which also gives me anxiety sometimes. What is it? My superpower is leaping to the worst possible conclusion and the speed of a bullet or whatever. And so I just do that to my characters and it for them, but it's great.
I know we give them such bad. Yeah,
you don't want to be nice to your characters.
Oh, I know. Like I feel like for me, it's like I just see scenes in my head and like characters talking in my head. Like I have like stuff like a little world in my head. So it's like writing is such a good outlet to just
It is.
Easy out. No, it is a lot of fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like we haven't really covered. Can you think of anything? I don't know if hopefully we kind of shared a little bit about us to get a feel for us and our writing style and how we kind of go about it, and we're all over the place.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're totally all over the place.
And this and that. No, but it's fun. I mean, it definitely is a fun thing, and it's fun we get to share it together too. They'll have a lot of fun. And we'll hopefully get our book out together.
Yes. Soon. I was gonna say I think having a friend that does it makes it way more fun, especially the marketing stuff because marketing is so hard.
I I
I'm
know.
so much better at selling Amanda's stuff than my
I
own.
know. I feel like that's what I was gonna say when you were talking about your series. I was like, wait, Gail, you're not doing it right. Let
You're
me
not
pitch
doing
to
it
you.
right. Let me.
I can pitch it. Let me pitch it. This is what you need to say. No.
No, I'm terrible.
No, but I feel the same way though. I mean, it's especially since we've read each other's stuff, and I can be like, this is what hooked me, and this is what I loved. And so yeah, it's nice having a friend to do it with, doing events together. We love to do that together. It's a lot. It's fun. It's a fun thing to do.
Well, I think we're heading up on the end of our time.
Are we?
We are. We're at almost an hour. We did it.
Woo-hoo! I'm impressed with us.
I didn't think we'd be able to do it, but it is us, Amanda.
I was gonna say, you're lucky it's not a 2-hour event here, because
That is
we
true.
could just get going, like catching up on everything.
Yes.
We don't see each other enough, and so I know. Yeah.
I know. Even when we live in the same town, we didn't see each other.
I know, right? Just so busy, but writing, definitely. I love that we share this, because it's something we always like have together, and it definitely keeps us connected and talking to each other, and like, hey, what about this? I'm very happy. I'm very grateful. It's really special to have a friend to do it with. It's really cool. So we're happy we got to do this together.
Hopefully we'll get to do one in person.
I know.
We get to actually talk to everybody and answer questions, which we love to do.
Yeah, hopefully 2021, maybe, if, life
I'd say
returns.
it can't possibly be any worse, but I don't want to curse. I know, I don't want to curse myself. Knock on wood.
How could you say that out loud? Don't do that. Yeah, well, this was a lot of fun. So we're happy to do it, and hopefully we can do it again.
And hopefully we'll see you guys next year when we get to do one in person. So
Sounds good.
For watching our craziness, and we'll see you later.
We'll do it again.
Yes.
I'll let you hang up, Gail, because I don't know how to do it.